This week, I did something I probably should have done a long time ago. I tracked the time I actually spend on the card business. Not guessed, not estimated, not, yeah, I worked on cards a little bit this week. I actually tracked it. And the first full week came in around 40 hours. That's not counting my regular full-time career. That's 40 hours on the card business on top of a 40-hour primary job. So this episode is not about bragging that I worked hard. And it's also not about complaining that I'm busy. It is about what happens when the hobby business finally gets a time clock. Because the card business was already taking the hours. I just finally wrote them down. Welcome to my so-called card life. An inside look at the life of a low-end card reseller. Brought to you by JC3 Cards and Collectibles, a premier reseller of trading cards available today on eBay, Collects, and whatnot. Whether you're looking to fill out that new set or just rekindle memories with one of your favorite players from your favorite teams, let JC3 Cards and Collectibles help you find that card you're looking for and provide fast, secure delivery straight to your door. Welcome to my so-called card life, the podcast where we talk about what actually happens when you try to run a real card business, the decisions, adjustments, and lessons that don't show up in highlight reels. So let's start with the number. About 40 hours. That was the first full week that I tracked for the card business. And when I say card business, I mean all the real work around the business. Listing, shipping, sorting, inventory, pricing, coupons, content, and planning. All the little stuff that happens around the actual buying and selling of cards. And the first thing I had to admit was this. That probably wasn't some freak week. It may have felt shocking to see the number written down, but it didn't feel impossible. And that might be the scarier part. The scary part is not that I worked 40 hours on cards. The scary part is that I probably had been doing it for a while and just hadn't measured it. Because when the work is spread across mornings, evenings, weekends, phone checks, quick sorting sessions, and the classic just one more thing, it doesn't always feel like a full-time job. But when you add it up, that's exactly what it was. A second full-time job. And that changes the way I have to look at the business. Not emotionally, but operationally. One reason this sneaks up on you is that card business time doesn't always look like work. It hides in really small pieces. 20 minutes before work listing a few cards. 10 minutes checking offers. A few minutes answering a buyer message. Packing orders after dinner. Comping cards while sitting on the couch. Sorting inventory while watching TV. Looking at coupon performance or planning a YouTube episode. Thinking through what should be a single, what should be a lot, what should probably just leave the building. None of those things feel like a full-time job by themselves, but stacked together, they become one. And that is the trick. The card business is not one job. It's really 6 small jobs wearing a trench coat. You're the lister, the shipper, the buyer, the inventory manager, the pricing department, and your customer service. And if you're building content or doing shows or trying to grow a brand around it, now you're also the marketing department. So when someone says, I sell cards on the side, that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean 5 hours a week, it can mean 10 hours a week, or, as we just found out, it can mean another full-time job living inside the margins of your day. Once I saw the 40 hours, the next question was not just, how did that happen? The better question was, what were those hours actually doing? Were they building the business? Were they maintaining the business? Or were they just feeding the machine? Because those are different things. Some work creates future value. We talked about that last week a little bit. And some work keeps the store functioning. And then some work just burns time because there is always another pile of cards asking for attention. For me, the time went into a few main buckets. First, listing. And I consider that bucket to include scanning, creating the listings, checking prices, choosing categories, adjusting those item specifics, and making the decision about whether a card even deserves to be listed as a single. And again, that last part matters because every card listed individually is not just a listing. It's a decision to spend time on that card. And then there's fulfillment, pulling orders, quality checking cards, packing, printing labels, making sure the order matches what the buyer paid for, handling the little problems that pop up when real inventory meets real orders. And that brings us to inventory. There's the sorting and the stacking, moving cards into lanes, figuring out which cards are singles, small lots, bulk lots, and which ones probably are just bad decisions from the past looking for a way out. And then there's store management. That's where I'm working on coupons, I'm reviewing offers, or maybe proactively sending offers out. I'm studying watcher behavior for changes. I'm considering pricing. I'm tweaking categories in my store, trying to understand what buyers are actually doing instead of what I wish they were doing. And after that, there's content and brand work. I spend quite a bit of time on this podcast getting my so-called card life ready. I prep for the Dollar Box Live on Wednesday nights. I find that goat show energy when we've got a show coming up. I'm thinking of thumbnail ideas, taking episode notes, thinking of talking points, and coming up with promotional ideas. All of that counts. It may not look like listing cards, but it's still part of the business ecosystem that I'm trying to build. So when I look at 40 hours, I can't just say, wow, that's a lot. I have to ask, what those hours are buying. Are they buying sales? Maybe they're buying better systems. Or are they buying cleaner inventory? Maybe buying repeat customers. Or buying content that helps the brand. Or ultimately, are they just buying the feeling that I worked hard? And that's the uncomfortable part. This is where time tracking changes the way you look at your business. Because before tracking time, it's easy to look at the sales and feel movement. You see the orders coming in, and you see items sell. You see a coupon fire. You see tracking numbers uploaded, and all of that is real. But gross sales can make you feel like the business is moving. Time tracking tells you what it costs to move it. That doesn't mean the answer is always bad. I'm not saying every hour needs to produce a perfect return immediately. Some hours are investment hours. Some hours are cleanup hours. Yet other hours are system building hours, and some are maintenance hours. But once the hours are visible, I can't judge the business only by sales. I have to judge it by sales, margin, and time. And that's the real triangle: sales, margin, and time. If I make sales but destroy margin, that's a problem. If I make margin but it takes too much time to produce it, that's also a problem. If I save time but stop creating sales, well, that doesn't work either. The business needs all three to make sense. And for low-end cards, that's especially important. Because low-end cards are not usually about one big sale fixing the day. They're about repeatable processes, small wins, clean shipping, good buyer behavior, inventory that can move without needing too much hand-holding. And that's why tracking time matters. It makes the invisible cost visible. This is also why the coupon test stood out to me this week. The buy 7, get 40% off coupon is not just interesting because it made some sales. The bigger point for me is that it seems to fit the operation better than some of the other options I tried. That matters more now that I'm looking at the business through the lens of time. Because a good coupon does not just create sales. A good coupon protects time. With the buy 7, get 40% off setup, buyers have been landing right at 7 cards. And 7 cards matters because it fits the workflow. 7 cards packs really cleanly, 2 card savers taped together, a number 10 envelope, 2-ounce eBay standard envelope label. It's predictable shipping and predictable packing. The order gets bigger without turning into chaos. That is different from the promotion that creates sales but makes fulfillment really messy. I saw some of that with bigger coupon ideas I tried. Bigger orders sound good. More cards per order sounds good. High average order value sounds good. But if the promo pushes the order into awkward shipping, thicker packaging, higher cost, or slower fulfillment, then it might not be quite as good as it looks. And that's the operator lesson. The right promotion is not just the biggest discount. It's the offer that buyer behavior, margin, and shipping can all survive. And that's why this coupon matters inside the 40-hour episode here. Because once I know the business can consume 40 hours in a week, I also know I need systems that make orders cleaner, not just bigger. I need offers that buyers understand. And I need shipping that doesn't require a new decision every time. I need promotions that fit the way the business actually works. Not the fantasy version, the real version. The version that has to be packed after dinner. Now, I want to be clear here. Tracking 40 hours doesn't automatically mean the business is broken. That's not the takeaway I'm going for here. Point's not, oh no, this took 40 hours, so I need to quit. The real point is if the business is going to take 40 hours, then those hours need to be intentional. And that's the shift. Tracking time did not tell me to quit. It told me to stop pretending the business is lighter than it is. And once I stop pretending, I can then make better decisions. Maybe some tasks need to be batched up. Maybe some cards need to become lots faster. Maybe weak singles don't need to get rescued. Maybe certain sourcing opportunities aren't worth the time, even if the cards are cheap. Maybe some store maintenance work needs a tighter boundary. Or maybe content planning needs to be more efficient. Maybe the best system is not the one that creates the most activity. Maybe instead, it's the one that protects the person running the business. Because if this is going to operate like a second full-time job, then it needs systems that protect me from treating it like an endless hobby pile. And that's a big difference. A hobby pile can be endless. A business can't be. A business needs priorities. Business needs boundaries. And a business needs to know when enough is enough for the day. And a business also needs to know which work deserves the next available hour. So, what changes now? I don't think the answer is one massive overhaul. I think the answer is better visibility and sharper decisions. First, I do want to keep tracking the hours. 1 week is useful, but 1 week isn't the whole story. I want to see patterns. Which days get heavy? Which tasks eat more time? What part of the business is predictable? And what parts keep creating surprise labor? Second, I want to keep watching the difference between work that builds and work that maintains. Maintenance work is necessary. Orders have to ship, inventory has to be handled, messages have to be answered. But if every hour is maintenance, then the business is just feeding itself. There has to be some time that actually improves the machine. Third, I want to keep protecting simple workflows. That's where the 7-card coupon example matters a lot. If an offer creates cleaner orders, then it's worth paying attention to. If a lot needs ground advantage shipping, then price it that way instead of pretending it fits in another model. If a card is below the floor and doesn't have proven velocity, stop giving it premium labor. The time tracking makes those decisions easier to defend, because it no longer is just about whether a card might sell someday. It's about whether that card deserves time from a business that already consumed 40 hours this week. And that becomes a different question. And it's probably the question I should have been asking all along. I'd have to say the biggest thing I learned from tracking the time this week is that the card business was not suddenly heavy. It was already heavy. And I just finally put a number on it. And once that number is there, it changes the conversation. It's not just, did I sell cards? It's, what did it take to sell those cards? And what systems helped? Conversely, what systems created friction? And what tasks actually mattered versus what tasks only felt productive? And what needs to change if this is going to be sustainable? Because I still like this. I still want to build it. And I still believe in the model. But believing in the model doesn't mean ignoring the cost. And the time is part of the cost, maybe the biggest part. So for me, episode 32 is not a warning sign that says stop. It's a checkpoint. It's a business reality check. It's a moment where I have to respect the fact that the card business is not just taking a few spare minutes here and there. It's taking real time. And if it's going to take real time, then there needs to be real systems. Not just hustle, not just hope. Not just piles of cards and good intentions. Real systems, real tracking, real decisions. Because the goal is not just to build a bigger card business. The goal is to build one that I can actually keep running. That's really the lesson from this first week of tracking. Card business was already taking the hours. I just finally wrote them down. Once you can see the hours, you can start making better decisions. Not just about sales, but about your systems. And not just about listings, but about the labor going into them. And not just about whether something sold, but whether it was worth the time it took to make it sell. Look, I'm not walking away from the business because it took 40 hours. But I am going to respect the fact that it did. Because if this is going to operate like a second full-time job, then it needs systems that protect the person running it. That's all for this week, folks. Thank you again for joining us. Until next week, I hope you too keep building your own so-called card life.